All right, hello and welcome to lesson 18 of module 4. We're continuing with our standards 8E5 and E6, all about graphing proportional relationships, and we are now beginning to use our equation y equals mx plus b, which is slope-intercept format for the equation of a line. Our objective today is that you're going to be able to graph equations written in slope-intercept form. And our success criteria is that you'll know you're successful when you can identify the slope as m and the y-intercept as b when a linear equation is written in the form y equals mx plus b. You'll then apply this understanding to graph equations written in standard form. We're going to review some background skills, do some examples together. You'll complete exercises with your breakout groups, complete a closure, and then our exit ticket. As always, keep in mind our class expectations, and throughout this lesson be thinking of how this applies to your own life, maybe outside of this math classroom. All right, moving on. All right, for this first part, you're just going to watch me as I review some background stuff that we have been going over in our last couple of lessons. So if we look at A, we have an equation y equals 1/2 x plus 3, and we can see that this is written in slope-intercept form. It's following this format, y equals mx plus b. Oops, I put plus 3. And in this equation, our m, what's in our m position? Well, 1/2 is in our m position. So we know that from this graph, our slope is 1/2, up 1 over 2, okay? And our b is represented by this line right here, or this number right here, 3. And we're going to learn today what that tells us. And we're just going to learn that actually right now. We're going to derive something. So if I start with any point on the left side of my graph and I move to the right side of my graph, so let's just start with this point and move to this point, I know that I'm going to be going up 1 over 2, because that's what my slope tells me, right? Up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, and that will follow suit for the rest of my graph. Now what I want to figure out is, what is this b telling me? What does the b tell me? Now I'm going to go over this with you right now. Our b is our y-intercept. And what that means is that is where our line crosses the y-axis. So this is the y-axis, okay? And it's telling me that our line crosses the y-axis when it is at the number 3. And you can see that right now. When this is at the number 3, that's where it crosses the y-axis. So that's what we're going to be learning a little bit more about today. Moving over to this equation over on the right side for part B, it is also written in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. You can see that our m is a -3, so our slope is a -3. And our b, our y-intercept, is a +7. So our y-intercept is a +7. So I'm going to kind of work backwards now. I'm going to show you our y-intercept first. This means it's crossing our y-axis at the point +7. And you can see that it's crossing right there. When it hits that +7, it's crossing our y-axis. And our slope is a -3. That means we're going to go down 3 over 1 to get to our next point. Down 1, 2, 3, over 1. Down 1, 2, 3, over 1. And if we started at this point, we'd be going down 1, 2, 3, over 1 to get to our next point. All right, so again, our B represents our y-intercept. We're going to go do 2 more of these before we move into our lesson. All right, so for this first one right here, we see that our M is a -2 over 3. And we see that our B, it says -2, but our format for an equation of a line is y equals mx plus b, so I have to change this. I have to change it to a plus on this plus sign, so this becomes plus -2. So now that I'm looking at my b or my y-intercept is a -2. And let's just verify that with our graph. If I look at my y-intercept right here, I can see that it's crossing my line right at -2, so this was correct. And if I check my slope, I'm supposed to be going down 2 over 3. Down 1, down 2, over 1, 2, 3. That's the slope that works out. And if I start on the right side, you can see that too. Down 1, down 2, 1, 2, 3. Down 1, down 2, over 1, 2, 3. All right. And then let's just do this second one over here. Y equals mx plus b is what I need. So this, instead of our minus 4, becomes a plus negative 4. Sorry, I zoomed in way too much. Plus negative 4. All right. And from there, we can tell that our m is a 5. So that's our slope. And our b is now a negative 4. So you can see that our negative 4, our y-intercept is right there crossing this y-axis. And our slope is 5, which means we're going up 5 over 1. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. Okay? And that's pretty much what we were going to be doing today. But I just wanted to build some background about plotting points, calculating slope with rise over run, and changing our equations around to make sure they are following this format. Y equals mx plus b. We always have to have a plus with our b. All right, we're going to get into example 1. This is pretty much what the work you're going to be doing today looks like. Just watch what I do and then write down the slope of this line and the y-intercept of this line. So this says just write down the slope and y-intercept. All right, so if I'm looking at my equation, it follows my format y equals mx plus b. I'm looking for my m. What's right before my x here? A 2/3. So my m is 2/3 or 2 over 3. And then I'm going to be looking for my b. What's in my b position? A 1. So remember that m, this is our slope, and b is our y-intercept. And so I'm going to just graph this on my graph. And these are the only two things I need for a graph. So I know that this is crossing my y-intercept at the point 1. So on this y-axis, it crosses this line right at this 1. Okay? So I know that there's a point right there. Now, I'm just going to use my slope to find the next point. So remember, our slope tells us our rise over our run. So I'm going to go up 2. So up 1, up 2, and I'm going to go over 3. Over 1, 2, 3. So I know that this is where my next point is. Okay? And I'm going to do that just one more time to put another point. Up 1, 2, over 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I put my second point. And so I know that this is the line that I have got. And I can draw a line through this and show my line when it's graphed. My line's not perfect, but this is what you're going to be doing today. So all I need for you to do on your own paper right now, write down these two things and then graph this line. For example 2, we're going to be doing the exact same thing as example 1. I want to just first write out my equation, make sure I know what is in each section. Now this pretty much follows my format y equals mx plus b. There's one thing that's missing, and that this is supposed to be a plus sign. So if I want to change that to a plus sign, I have to do keep, change, I changed it, and then I have to do the opposite, so this becomes a -2. So I just have to make sure that I'm following that format before I go any further. All right, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look for my slope. It shows me that my slope here is a -3/4. So I'm going to go down 3 over 4. And then I'm going to be looking for my y-intercept, which is my b. And it looks like that matches up with my -2. Remember, that's a -2 because I changed it to plus negative. So my b is a -2. All right, so to graph this, I'm going to start with my y-intercept. So I'm looking at this y line right here. And I know that my line is going to cross over that y-axis at -2. So there's going to be a point right here at -2. That's the first point for my line. Okay, I graphed it. From there, I'm going to be using my slope to find my next point. So my slope tells me I'm going to be going down 3. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. And then it tells me I'm going to go over 4. So I'm going to go to the right 4. Over 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's going to be my second point. Now, what if I wanted to put another point? Well, there's no more space going this way, but I have more space going this way that I could put a point. So I'm just going to work backwards. So I know that it's going to be 4 spaces away, sideways. So I'm going to go backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I know that I was supposed to be going down. So if I'm trying to work backwards and find the point that's above this, I'm going to go up. 1, 2, 3. So the point that was before this would have been over here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line through these points. And that is my line following this format. We're going to do another example here. So I just want to make sure I'm following my format. Y equals mx plus b. I can see already that there's not a plus sign for my b, so I'm going to do change opposite and change it to a plus sign real quick. From there, I'm going to identify my slope. Slope is a 4, and my y-intercept is a -7. All right. So like I said before, we want to start with our y-intercept. So our y-intercept, our b, is a -7, so it's crossing this line, this y-axis, on this point, this -7. Okay? And my slope is 4. So what does that mean? If my slope is 4, what's the invisible number underneath this 4? 4 over what? Well, it's going to be a 1 because all whole numbers have an invisible denominator of 1. So this tells me I'm going to be going up 4 and I'm going to be going over 1. Okay, so starting with this y-intercept point at -7, I'm going to go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to go over 1. Here's my next point, and I think I have room to do it again. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1. And this is my line for example 3. This is what you guys are going to be doing today. Okay, so for example number 4, we're just going to do some rapid fire questions really quickly. I want to check your understanding and see if you can figure this out. For each of these, I want you to tell me what the slope is. I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. We have one more. And I want you to tell me what your y-intercept is, which is your b. I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes in your breakout rooms to come up with these answers, and then we're going to come back together and share out what we have got. So take 3 minutes, go find your m and your b, your slope and your y-intercept for each of these questions. We'll check together soon. All right, and we're just going to go over this. So for each of these, I'm trying to follow the format y equals mx plus b. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that down above each of these, just to make sure I'm following that format and I don't have to change anything before I get to solving. All right, so starting with number 1, I'm looking at this format and my equation does not have a plus sign, so I'm going to have to change that so this becomes plus -5. For the second one, it looks good. There's no m right here, but I know that the m is invisible. It's an invisible 1. For number 2, we're good. Number 3, there's no plus b, so I could just add plus nothing. We're not adding anything to that, okay? For this next one, I have a minus sign, so I need to do plus negative. And this last one is good. So I have made sure I followed the format for each of these, and from there I'm going to go ahead and find my m and find my b. So for this first one, my slope here is 4/5. My y-intercept is -5. Check that with what you got. And we're going to move on to the next one. For number 2, my m is a 1. My slope is a 1. And that's the same as saying 1 over 1, right? And then my y-intercept was a 3. For number 3, my slope was a -4/3. And my y-intercept was a positive 4. For number 4, my slope, oops, wrong thing. My slope is 5 over 2. And my y-intercept is plus 0 because there was no plus anything at the end. So no, I'm adding nothing. So my y-intercept is 0. For what number is this? Number 5. My slope is 2. And my y-intercept is negative 6 because I had to change opposite for this one. And then for the last one, for number 6, my slope is a negative 5. And my y-intercept is a 9. All right, so these are the answers you should have got with your breakout groups. Remember, sometimes we have to change up our problem a little bit to follow y equals mx plus b format exactly before we can identify these things, all right? So here's your new learning for today. Yesterday we learned that the m position represents our slope, okay? Today we've learned that the b position represents our y-intercept. So for example, if you look at this equation right here, y equals 3x plus 4, our slope is going to be a 3, and our y-intercept is going to be a 4 because those two numbers fall in those positions of m and b. And if we have our slope and if we have our y-intercept, then we can always graph a line, and we're going to do that right now in our exercises. Okay, so for exercise 1, you're going to do this with your breakout group. You're going to take this equation. I want you to find your m, then I want you to find your b, and then I want you to graph it. So when you graph, please start with your y-intercept and then just use your slope to find the next point. You're going to have 3 minutes to do this, and then we will go over it together. All right, we're going to go over this question together. The first thing I wanted to note was that y equals mx plus b is our format. And if I'm looking at my equation right now, I see that this is not a plus sign, so I have to change this minus 4 into a plus negative 4 so that it follows my format. When I do that, I can identify that my m was 5 over 2, and my b, my y-intercept, was a negative 4. All right, and from there we are going to graph this. So the first thing we want to do is graph our y-intercept. So this crosses the y-intercept, or there's the y-axis at negative 4. So if I go on my y-axis and I go to negative 4, this is the first point that I'm going to have. Okay, and I just graph that. And then from there I'm going to use my slope to find my next point. So my slope tells me go up 5. So from this point I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it says go over to the right 2. I'm going to go over 1, 2, and this is my next point. And you only need 2 points to graph a line. My line is crooked, but that's fine. And so this is the line that I have graphed. Check it with your own. Please make sure you have it down if you got it wrong. All right, for exercise 2, you're going to do the same thing. Make sure this is following y equals mx plus b format. From there, I want you to tell me what your m is, what your b is, and then I want you to graph it. Take 3 minutes to do this with your breakout group. Okay? All right, coming back, I can see that my m for this is a negative 3. My b for this was a 6. I didn't have to change my equation around at all. So the first thing I'm going to do is graph my y-intercept, which is at 6. So it's starting right up here. And from there, I'm going to find my next point using my y-intercept. My y-intercept says I'm going to be at my slope. So I'm going to use my slope to find my next point. I'm going to be going down 3 over 1 because this tells me my rise and this tells me my run. So I'm going to go down 3 from this point, 1, 2, 3, and then I always move to the right. And I go over 1 because just like we read from left to right, we stop from left to right. And you could have done another point as well if you wanted. Down 1, 2, 3, over 1. And this is where my line is. Check your work with my work. Write the correct answers if you don't have them. All right, last exercise here to do with your group. This is our equation, y equals 1x plus 0. You're going to use that equation to graph. Please find your m, please find your b, and then graph it. All right, going over this now, our m is a 1, and our b is a 0. So that means we're crossing our y-axis right at 0, so we're starting here. And then our slope is a 1. We know that there's an invisible 1 under that, so we're going to go up 1, over 1 to get to our next point. So up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1. And if we wanted to work backwards, you can see this pattern. We'd have to go over 1, down 1, because we're working backwards. Over 1, down 1. But you don't have to do this. You only need 2 points to graph a line. So this is the line that we have. Check your work with my work before we move on. Hopefully you and your group members were able to get this. All right, for this lesson closure today, I'm just going to go through some of the things we learned and show you in kind of like a different way, just to kind of put some pieces together. So it says graph the point 0, 2. So 0 is my x, and y is my, or 2 is my y. So I'm going to go over 0 on my x and then up 2 on my y. Okay? And it says add another point to the graph using the slope 2 over 7. So I'm going to go up 2, and I'm going to go over 7. I'm going to go up 1, 2, over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is my next point. Okay, and then it says connect the points to make a line. So my line's kind of off, but I did connect the points, and now it says write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. So remember, we have y equals mx plus b for slope-intercept form, and what I need to find in order to correctly write this line is I need to write in my m, and I need to write in my b. And from this problem that I did, I know both of those. So my answer is going to be y equals, well, my slope was 2 over 7. It's going to be 2 over 7x plus, what was my b? What was my y-intercept? Well, it intercepted my y-axis right here. Here's my y-axis at 1, 2. It was at 2 on my y-axis. So this is the equation for my line. I just kind of worked backwards here today, proving all these things for our lesson closure. But the lesson closure, know what m is, know what b is, and know how to use those two things to create a graph. Now, if you don't feel confident with this, please go back and rewatch some of the examples, some of the exercises as we went through them today before you move into the exit ticket. But if you are confident and ready, then go ahead and move into the exit ticket, which I'll explain next. Okay, for your exit ticket today, you have 2 questions, and these questions are a little bit different than what we're used to. It says, Mrs. Hodson said that the graphs of the equations below are incorrect. Find the student's errors and correctly graph the equations. So you'll see right here that the student was supposed to graph this equation, y equals 1/2 x plus 4, but they made a mistake. This is wrong. Okay, so it's your job to make it right. So it says, tell me what the error is. So right here, I want you to tell me what did they do wrong, and then I want you to graph it right. Okay, using your m and your b. Slide, you're going to be doing the same thing. So the teacher said that this person, when they graphed this equation, y equals negative 3x, negative 3/5 x minus 1, they did something wrong here. So I want you to tell me, what did they do wrong? Explain it right here. And then I want you to make the correct graph. Okay? And that's your exit ticket for today. When you're done with your exit ticket, please move into Google Classroom, find your lesson reflection, and complete that. All right, good job.